hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30am.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 o'clock, I'm Patrick Christys, and this is GB News Tonight. After delivering the biggest speech of his life, has the Prime Minister proven that he's a winner who can fundamentally change the country? I will get the reaction from my brilliant panel. And tonight I am joined by fan favourites Christine Hamilton, Adam Brooks and Matthew Larzer. What's not to love about that? But it wasn't Rishi Sunak who stole the show at conference, no. It was our very own Nigel Farage. So, would his return to the Tories save the party? Stanley Johnson takes on Edwina Currie in the clash. Plus, is language like a migration hurricane from Suella Braverman daring or dangerous? I will tell you why the critics of that barnstorming speech are absolutely, categorically, 100% wrong, and they need to get out more. And that is next. And in a major royal ding-dong, Prince Andrew is clinging on to residing in his Windsor mansion, but should the King shut the door on his disgraced brother? Who better than Angela Levin giving her expert analysis very shortly? Tomorrow's newspapers' front pages, they're on the way too. And Jim Davidson is uncancelled later in the show. What could go wrong, eh? A blockbuster 2 hours coming your way right after the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Patrick, thank you. Good evening. Well, the top story tonight is that the Prime Minister today confirmed the northern leg of HS2 is to be scrapped in his speech at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. Speaking about the high-speed rail network after weeks of speculation, Rishi Sunak instead unveiled a plan for Network North, saying the £36 million saved will be better spent developing northern transport routes. The eastern leg to East Midland Parkway is also scrapped. HS2 will still run from London Euston to Manchester, but it'll run on existing tracks from Birmingham onwards.
We'll reinvest every single penny, £36 billion, in hundreds of new transport projects in the North and the Midlands across the country. This means £36 billion of investment in the projects that will make a real difference across our nation.
Well, in reaction to that, the former Prime Minister David Cameron criticised the announcement, saying that a once-in-a-generation opportunity had been lost. And the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, said the new investment plan didn't create a coherent transport network. But Mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, says while he's disappointed at the decision, he believes all in all, it's a good compromise. Now, away from Tory party conference, the Sunderland man who died after being attacked by what's thought to be an XL bully dog has been named by Northumbria Police as Ian Langley. Police attended the incident last night following reports a dog had injured the 54-year-old who was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. A 44-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder and an investigation has been launched. The dog was destroyed at the scene. A second dog has been seized. A sixth person has been arrested in connection with the Crooked House pub fire in Staffordshire. A 23-year-old man from Leicestershire was arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to commit arson with intent. He's been released on conditional bail while the investigation continues. 4 men and a woman were previously arrested in connection with the fire that destroyed the iconic pub back in August. Now, the UK and Ireland are set to host the Euros in 2028, pending final approval from UEFA's Executive Committee next week. It comes as Turkey withdrew its bid to host the European Football Championship. It'll instead merge bids with Italy for 2032. And 10 stadia in the UK were selected to host the matches, including Glasgow's Hampden Park, the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Dublin's Aviva Stadium and Wembley in London. Fingers crossed. You're with GB News on your TV and on the TuneIn app. Now back to Patrick.
Welcome along. Now, if you're more upset about the words hurricane and invasion than you are about the impending destruction of Britain and Western culture, then I think you've got a massive problem. Suella Braverman has got more guts than a kebab-eating, 9-pint-a-night darts enthusiast for coming out and saying what the vast majority of people in Britain really think. Both legal and illegal immigration at their current levels will ruin the Western world as we know it. Here's that moment from her barnstorming speech that has lefties so hot under the collar.
The wind of change that carried my own parents across the globe in the 20th century was a mere gust compared to the hurricane that is...
Well, she's right. And when it comes to the word invasion that she's previously used, if we lined up all the boats that have crossed the Channel this year and sent them over from Calais in one go, packed, full of mostly young men, would it, or would it not, look like an invasion? If we looked at legal immigration in the 1950s or the 60s and we called that level a gust, then what's happening right now, very obviously, is equivalent to a hurricane, isn't it? So her language is not a problem for me. She's not out of order, she's not stoking racial tensions, she's being forceful with what she says, but we've had decades of politicians pussyfooting around this issue, and the opposition leader struggles to even say what a woman is, for goodness sake. People who find that language offensive need to get out more and realise that the majority of people around the country say things like that all the time. But of course, they won't get out more, will they? Because the luxury belief brigade, as she called them, the open border fanatics, the human rights contingent, they hate you. They hate ordinary people. They lock their car doors when they drive through Burnley. They couldn't give a damn about anyone that lives in Rochdale, and they joke about the people of Rotherham while they hobnob next to the fire pit in their country retreat, tossing lumps of foie gras at their pigeon frit. Oh, isn't it absolutely outrageous that the Home Secretary said a hurricane of migrants are on their way? Yeah? Where do you live? Oh, you've chosen to move to an upper-middle-class village somewhere with quiet local schools and hospitals so you don't have to deal with all the consequences of your own ideology, right? Of course you have, yeah. This stuff writes itself. We all know these people. I mentioned human rights a little earlier. Now, towards the end of this clip, you'll hear another reason why Suella copped it. Here's some more of her supposedly controversial comments from conference.
far too squeamish about being smeared as racist to properly bring order to the chaos. Is Labour that turbocharged their impact by passing the misnamed Human Rights Act. I'm surprised they didn't call it the Criminal Rights Act.
Strong stuff. Well, the Human Rights Act should be called the Criminal Rights Act. That's what she said. All I'll say is this. A lot of criminals rely on the Human Rights Act to not be deported, and it does seem to work for them, doesn't it? What I think the left hates most about Suella Braverman is that she isn't white. She's an ethnic minority who doesn't think the way that she's supposed to. I mean, they'll still call her a fascist anyway, unlike these people, of course, who appeared outside Tory party conference. Yes. Look at that. I mean, forgive me, all right? Forgive me. But who are the fascists here? Can you imagine if these were Brexiteers at a Remainer conference? The backlash, look at them. You know why people want to complain about Suella Braverman's language, don't you? It's because they think it's racist or divisive. No, it's not that at all. It's because they actually don't want her to talk about it at all. They don't want anyone to admit that we have a massive problem. Language is important. And I'd rather have the words that Suella uses than the words other politicians use to lie to us about the true scale of the problem. But to respond now, my superstar panel, author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. I'm also joined by businessman and activist Adam Brooks and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. OK, all right, Christine, look, I'll start with you on this. I mean, not everyone agrees with me. Of course, plenty of people do think that it's deeply offensive to use words like hurricane and invasion. I would argue that's what most people say.
Absolutely. I think one of the cleverest things that she said, she talked about people's luxury beliefs, and you summed it up just now. People who disappear after their country retreats, they don't have to deal with the problems that immigration caused for a whole lot of other people. And I loved her comparing the wind of change that carried my own parents across the globe was a mere gust compared to the hurricane that's coming. She echoed Macmillan's winds of change. I thought her speech was perfect. People need to wake up. It's plain speaking, it's clear speaking, and it's about time too, and I hope she has sent a clarion call to the faint hearts in the cabinet. She was well received in the conference hall, and I think she will be well received outside, so good for her.
Matthew, were you clutching your pearls at that?
Look, I can tell you that if I was a Tory, I'd be worried, because in my party's got experience of when the party faithful are cheering the name and shouting the name of their favourite in the conference hall, you know that actually you've lost people outside. I thought it was an appalling speech.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Because when people were shouting "Love Jeremy Corbyn" or shouting "Braverman," and they were saying B-R-A-V, it's fine to appeal to the people in the hall, but you need to appeal to people in the country. And it is absolutely wrong. I found the speech offensive because actually the bit that she said about my parents, she wouldn't. It's a bit like the old Studio 54, the nightclub in New York. Would you let you in? If Suella Braverman was the Home Secretary now, she wouldn't have let her own. No, she wouldn't. There was not one line in that speech about. There was not one line of humanity or one acknowledgement in that about people fleeing war zones.
Right, 1 second, but you just mentioned the word nightclubs. I used to own nightclubs.
You did?
There was a safety that I had to abide by, letting a certain amount of people in. There was a limit on how many people you could let in.
Absolutely. Nobody's saying they should have unlimited immigration.
A country is no different. It's just on a larger scale. Now, last year, this year, we've had 25,000 come across on dinghies that we've detected. How many have we not detected? Then you add the people that are in the back of the lorries. Now, I don't care if they're black, white or brown. It doesn't matter to me. We've got a problem. We've got nowhere to house them. They don't integrate. And we have had people like rapists come across, murderers, paedophiles, gangsters. We don't know who these people are. Her language is...
But you look outraged there at frankly, some facts.
I'll tell you the biggest fact of all. Who's been in government for the last 13 years? The Conservative Party. Suella Braverman sat in Parliament as a Conservative Member of Parliament. She needs to stop pretending this is year zero. It's not. It's year 13 of Tory failure. She says she's going to get rid of the hotels. Who's put them... There were no hotels when Labour was in government. The £6-7 million a day bill is all because of... No, we didn't have the problem, because we had proper enforcement and proper deals with our European neighbours. It's a Tory problem which needs a Labour solution.
Just because the Tories have sat on their hands for 13 years doesn't mean that now is not the time to do something something about it. And I do think, I can't remember who said
Promises, promises, promises.
I do think that there is a large element of people who think that she shouldn't be saying it. There is a racist element against Suella Braverman and against...
There have been some very nasty comments online.
Very nasty comments.
But the mainstream reaction to the speech, it's perfectly reasonable to say we want controlled immigration, we want to stop the boats, but we don't think Suella's doing a very good job. Not least because she hasn't stopped the boats.
How can we do that when we've got lefty lawyers and lefty courts undermining everything that the government tries to do? I like the fact that she says it as it is. She's got no fear. She has got balls, and I like that.
But you'd have said the same about Priti Patel, and she didn't stop the boats either.
What, because of lefty lawyers and lefty courts?
No, it's because of the Tory Congress.
OK, one at a time. Matthew, now, is she not right that things would be worse under Labour?
She's completely wrong.
OK, and now you're going to tell me that she's completely wrong because what you will do is do a magical deal with our European friends.
It won't be a magical deal, it'll be a deal that works, like the deal David Blunkett did as Home Secretary.
What is it? What is it?
What is it?
And how are you going to do it, and when will it be delivered?
The first thing we will do is process the claims that are stacked up. 160,000.
So you'll wave them through?
No, absolutely not. I said process. The second thing we'll do is have fast turnaround. So at the moment the system is broken after 13 years of Tory government.
Right.
So people who arrive from safe countries are sent back quickly.
How are you going to do that?
We will have the cross-border police.
How are you going to do that? Because we're not doing it now. So what are you going to do? We're just going to do it.
We're going to put the resources in that needs to do it. It's going to be a priority for the government. If this government wanted to do it, it could divert resources from other things that it wastes time on. And instead, the Tory government wants there to be a boat crisis because it wants to use it as a wedge issue with the Labour Party. Well, it's got something coming because Labour will be firm in campaigning in the general election that only Labour will stop the boats.
Where would you divert money from? HS2 money has now been bespoke elsewhere.
As if the HS2 money is ever going to be seen by those transport projects in the north. I mean,
where
it's
would
promises,
you take
promises,
the money
promises.
From? You're not going to take it from the
This
NHS
only
or
stops.
Education?
This only stops when there's a deterrent. The only deterrent we've got up our sleeves at the moment is Rwanda, or we turn back the boats.
Now, this is where there's a problem. So I've deliberately focused here on the language that she's used because I think we need to be able to speak frankly, we need to be able to speak plainly, and I can guarantee you right now that the turns of phrase that she uses are spoken about in northern towns, in towns in the Midlands, in towns in the North East, without the batting of an eyelid. There's a lot of, you kind of Hampstead-based chatterati that get worked up about that. But there was some language she didn't use, and that was get us out of the ECHR.
Yeah, no, she didn't, nor did Rishi.
And that is the practical problem, is it not?
So, of course it is. And only today I've read online, in one of the newspapers, that an asylum seeker has set fire to a hotel.
OK.
Has assaulted the security guard.
Again.
Got 6 months in prison, but we can't deport him.
But the Tories have been talking about getting out of the ACHR. I mean, I know that you'll agree with this, Adam.
But
it's for 13 years.
These courts are strangling our power to deal with our own immigration.
Well, it's not strangling Belgium's power. Belgium has stopped pretty much stopped the boats coming here. We need to kick French arse, to put it bluntly, and do a deal. But they're holding out politically to do a problem. But we also need a government that's going to prepare to set up a cross-border police force.
We need a deterrent,
as will happen under Labour.
And the ECHR is stopping our deterrent, which is Rwanda.
Even if it is, they've had 13 years to get rid of it. I made a documentary 12 years ago about it.
It was a significant omission
12 years.
from Suella's speech and Sunak's speech. I'll tell you what I find so disheartening is that when I was a youngster, we'd had 13 years of Tory misrule when Labour got in the whenever it was, 60 whatever. And now we've had it all over again. And I agree, they've just been pussyfooting around for 13 years. But they've left it a bit late.
OK. Do you accept, Matthew, that the rate of even legal migration that we've got
Absolutely,
at
Patrick,
the moment,
and it's gone up.
OK, but what about it concerns you the most?
Because
what bit of society do you think is damaging the most? Legal migration.
The problem we've got on legal migration is that because the numbers are so high, the infrastructure can't support it. And what's depressing to somebody who was vehemently opposed to Brexit like me is that we were sold a pup. But legal migration is higher now than it's ever been, and it's higher than it was when we were in the EU. And of course, when we were in the EU, it was mostly people of working age population. Now it is more people who are family dependents and others who are not going straight into the working age population.
So, Adam, would you, as you're a businessman, right? You rely on a good economy in a way that we all do, but possibly more directly to you. Would you be willing to accept a few years of maybe even a recession if it meant us reducing our GDP by virtue of accepting fewer people into this country? Would you be willing to take that on the chin?
Well, I don't think many businesses will survive a recession because we're in such a weak position from COVID and the energy crisis, but things have got to change.
Yeah. Because that's kind of the price that we might pay. Because at the moment, I believe we're taking part in a giant immigration Ponzi scheme where you basically keep ramping people into a country and you probably look at our GDP. We're not better off per capita, are we? So that's where it all falls down for me. So we would have to, as a country, be able to have a conversation about whether or not someone's brave enough to bite the bullet and go, right, we're going to look on the spreadsheet like our national growth has shrunk because we've reduced migration. So it's kind of a balancing act, isn't it?
It is a balancing act, but also what you say earlier, it's about integration and it's about protecting British sort of values and how...
Culture.
Culture is the word I needed. And at these numbers, it won't be too long before this country's completely changed and unrecognisable. So legal migration and illegal migration has to be controlled very quickly.
Go on quickly, very quickly.
People, I think, are most concerned about illegal migration. That's what concerns people more, not legal migration.
OK, all right.
Quick enough?
We're off to a very quick. If anything, too quick. You caught me on the hop. We're off to a flyer. Thank you very much. Great stuff. Now, should the King allow Prince Andrew to keep the keys to his royal lodge in Windsor? Angela Levin offers their expert analysis very, very shortly on whether or not Meghan Markle is really going to run for political office. But first, in the clash. In his speech today, Rishi Sunak got the curtain call at Tory conference, but it was our very own Nigel Farage who stole the show. So, would Nigel, rejoining the Conservatives, save the party? Stanley Johnson takes on Edwina Curry. That's next. Don't move.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the live desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My royal expert, Angela Levin, coming up. But first, it's time for The Clash. Now, Rishi Sunak took centre stage at conference today in a bid to convince the public that he is the man to fundamentally change Britain for the better. Here's what the PM had to say.
So if this country is to change, then it can only be us who will deliver it. Because if we do not, our growth will be stunted. More places will be left behind, and ever more of our time will be spent debating the side issues and symptoms rather than the deeper, more structural challenges we face. We won't allow this to happen.
The thing people have to understand, OK, is that when GB News turns up in town, we make the big noise. And so it wasn't the Prime Minister who was the star of the show at conference. Far from it. There was only one name on everyone's lips. Arise. Nigel Farage, who attracted huge crowds and adoring fans wherever he went, especially amongst the young, it must be said. And Farage mania even spread to some senior Tory MPs who said that they'd welcome him back to the party in a heartbeat. Check this out. Nigel Farage become a member of the Conservative Party again. Should he be allowed to?
I think we should go on our hands and knees and beg him.
You may have noticed that Nigel Farage is wandering around your conference, first time in decades. Would you have him back as a member of the Tory party?
Now, the Tory party is a very broad church, right? I welcome lots of people who want to subscribe to our ideals, to our values.
Yeah, and there was a lot more of that as well, by the way. So tonight I am asking, would Nigel Farage rejoining the Conservatives save the party? Let me know your thoughts. Email me, Patrick Christys @gbnews.com, or tweet me at GBNews. In fact, the best way to email me would be gbviews@gbnews.com, because I'm not checking my emails because I'm on the telly. But I will bring you those results very, very shortly. But to debate this now, I am joined by the former MEP and conservationist Stanley Johnson, who knows a thing or two about people who lead Conservative parties, as does my other esteemed guest, former Conservative MP and Minister Edwina Currie. Both of you, thank you very much for joining me. It's always ladies first here. Edwina, Nigel Farage to save the Tories. Your thoughts?
I'm no lady. I'm a Scouser. No, I don't think he would actually save the party. I mean, Nigel has a long history of failure behind him. He's failed as leader of several different parties, some of which he's set up and then managed to destroy. Vote Leave wouldn't have him, if you remember. The electorate won't have him. 7 times he's stood for Parliament and been rejected. I mean, the only thing he's actually succeeded in was over 20 years serving in the European Parliament, which apparently he hated, but he still did it. And that was because they had the daft proportional representation system. I mean, he's a good mouth. You know, that's all he is. He can put a case, he's very noisy.
Look, Edwina, he's won a couple of national elections when it's come to the European Parliament. You know, he was on the right side of history with Brexit. He rallied the base. Stanley Johnson, I will bring you in now. You just can't buy Nigel's kind of popularity. Why wouldn't the Tories have him?
As far as I'm concerned, I disagree with Nigel on a very great number of things. By the way, I just watched the interview he had with Jacob Rees-Mogg, and you see from that, this is a guy who does have star quality. Jacob Rees-Mogg pointed out that everybody's flocking around. My point is this: what are we here for? The Conservatives are here to win. Win the next election. How can they possibly turn this man down if he is willing to rejoin it? Don't forget what happened in 2019. He stood down his troops. He stood down his troops. If he hadn't done that, I suspect that the majority we had in December 2019 would have been very much smaller than it is now. Now, just as a matter of basic courtesy, we should say to him, look, Nigel, do apply. Jacob made it clear we ought to have him. I think we ought to have him, and my view is that a man of that calibre can be persuaded to do the right thing, and in any case, the people of this country will support him.
Edwina, if we had a referendum on some of the major issues facing this country at the moment, so net zero, the ECHR, what we should do with small boats, legal migration, I put it to you that Nigel's view on all of those issues would win at a referendum. So why wouldn't the Conservatives have him? Would you rather be out of office?
Well, with all due respect, a referendum is the last thing that we need. Remember the trouble that the last referendum caused. So that's not going to happen.
No, my point is he'd be on the right side of it. My point is he'd have the majority view. Go on.
Just politicians do not answer questions that begin with if. We don't answer hypothetical questions. We deal with the real world. I thought Rishi Sunak's speech this afternoon was absolutely brilliant. It's a long time since I've heard a serious speech from a Prime Minister exactly like that. I think he's got exactly the right policies, and I think actually Conference had the same view as well. That's the way we win, with good government, not with slogans and spouting rubbish. And actually, just not... bear this in mind, Patrick, that whatever anybody thinks about Nigel Farage, he's not that popular in the rest of the country. And we really want to be winning elections, not putting up somebody who's going to lose them for us, as we've done so many others.
I find myself...
Go on, Stanley. Go on.
I find myself in a very bizarre position. Bizarre because I said I don't agree with Nigel on a lot of things. But one thing I will say is he can win elections. And I think we've got to think of that. And one other thing I want to say, the most impressive speech I heard today was Mrs. Sunak's. I thought Ashkata Murty was absolutely brilliant. She ought to be there too. Let's have them both together.
That's the dream ticket. We have Rishi Sunak's out in the cold. You've got Shatter and Nigel there leading the way. I mean, yeah, absolutely. No, I can get that. The thing is, though, Stanley, right, you know a thing or two about raising a big personality, OK? Personalities do win elections. And at the moment, we've got two candidates who don't have any.
Well,
Stanley.
that may well be true.
Yeah,
that may well be true, but that's not what you win an election, then you've got to run the country. And with all due respect, Stanley's son found it a little difficult to run the country when the challenges came. What we've got now is a Prime Minister and a government that are actually running the country rather well after some, shall we say, slightly turbulent times. I don't think the nation really wants more turbulence. I don't think they just want a spouting personality. I think they want some good government, and we can deliver that.
Well, I'm interested that Edwina at least admitted there are some challenges which Boris faced. That was generous of you, Edwina. I think one of the challenges he faced actually was his so-called friends of the Conservative Party. But let's not go down that route. No, I say the Conservative Party at this moment cannot afford to turn its back on Nigel Farage and the support he could bring.
OK, I'm just going to finish with a quick question to both of you. I think I might know the answer there. Edwina, are you honestly saying to me that if Nigel Farage stood in Rishi Sunak's position, so if he was leading the Conservative Party right now, do you honestly think they'd do worse at the next general election?
Yes, absolutely, because an awful lot of people will dislike him, don't trust him, don't like his politics, don't feel that he is trustworthy. I mean, members of his own parties...
I just wonder if has he not got more conservative values, though, Stanley, than the, frankly, quite socialist economics of the day and the authoritarianism of the day, banning smoking and all of this stuff, banning things, you know.
Well, I want to tell
like
you,
that.
I want to tell you, Patrick, I have a long-term plan here. OK. And my long-term plan is use Farage, use him ruthlessly, get him in to deliver a Tory majority, and then have an extraordinary evolution in the Farage personality where he says, yes, of course, I was pro-Brexit, but now I think we really need to build a substantial, solid base for our relationships with Europe, and a few other things as well. So, yes, I say get him in, use him. He's the secret weapon which will actually deliver not only the election victory, but get us back on the right track in so many other ways too.
All right, both of you, that is a proper clash, so well done. Thank you very much. That is former Conservative MP and Minister Edwina Currie, who shushed me earlier. I will not forget that, Edwina. And, of course, the former MEP and conservationist Stanley Johnson. Good stuff. Now, who do you agree with? Would Nigel Farage, rejoining the Tories, save the party? Mark on Twitter says the Tory party is now UKIP in all but name. If Farage joins, it would show people what it's become, a shabby and divisive shadow of itself. At least people would understand one way or the other what it was voting 4. Leah on Twitter says, only with Farage as leader do the Tories have any hope of winning the next election. Well, that's a range of views already. Steve on Twitter says the Conservatives have lost the next election. So why on earth would Farage want to join a party that is a lost cause? Look, Steve, I've got a feeling, especially as somebody who was prowling the corridors of Conservative Party conference, that actually I think plans are being laid for after the election, and maybe that's when we will see some rather interesting developments, but more of that later. Your verdict is in, though. This is interesting. 43% of you think that Nigel Farage rejoining the Tories would help save the party. 57% of you say that he wouldn't. What I would be fascinated to know with that is how many people said, no, you didn't think he'd save the Tories because you want him to go it alone, because you want him to just do his own thing, maybe you vote for a different political party, etc. I'd be loving to know some of the nuance involved in that. Also makes a difference to quite a lot of the polls that normally appear on this show, where it's like 90% of you think that this. Anyway, coming up, after Tory conference rails against extreme gender ideology, have they positioned themselves as the party for women's rights? This has gone underreported. I think this is a massive issue, and it doesn't only affect women. If you've got daughters, if you've got nieces, if you've got granddaughters, absolutely, this affects you, even as a man, right? So my panel return to debate that, whether or not the Tories really are the party now of the women. If you can secure around 50% of the population, you're doing right. But in a right royal ding-dong, as Prince Andrew clings on to his state mansion in Windsor, is the King about to show him the door? Angela Levin gives her judgment on the warring brothers, and she will reveal why Meghan Markle's political hopes in America are well and truly shattered. Prince Harry's biographer joins me live, and that is next.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, wonderful people. Now, comedy legend Jim Davidson is waiting in the wings, but first it's time for esteemed journalist, royal biographer, the wonderful Angela Levin, fan favourite here, and Prince Andrew is battling hard to remain in his royal lodge in Windsor. So first, the Daily Mirror reported that he'd struck a deal with the King, allowing him to a stay of execution, for want of a better phrase, but only if he could find funds for vital repair work. But just hours later, royal insiders told the Daily Mail no one, not least His Majesty, believes there is any realistic long-term chance of the Duke of York being able to keep the roof at Royal Lodge over his head. Right, so, Angela, is this a temporary solution, or are we going to end up with Prince Andrew living like, you know, kind of an old aristocrat with the roof falling down, frogs spawning in his swimming pool, spiders everywhere, looking like a Roman ruin?
No, I doubt that. But the thing is, he hasn't got much of his own money. The late Queen Elizabeth, his mother, used to give him about £250,000 pounds a year for him to live on. He hasn't got that anymore. King Charles stopped that when he became king. And the problem is that there's a lot of leaking. And I don't mean people telling people stories. I mean actually water coming through the roof and through the windows. And King Charles has said he can stay there if he looks after everything and repairs it all. But I don't think that he can do that. What is actually quite interesting and not cunning, but almost cunning of King Charles is to let him stay there because his ex-wife, the Duchess of York, who had a very long operation for breast cancer, and she's recovering there. Now, you know, it would look absolutely dreadful if he says you've got to get out now, which is what he said before she was discovered that she had cancer. So
but where does he go, Angela? Sorry to interrupt you, right? But I mean, let's say he goes in a year or 2 years. I mean, where does he go? Because he can't sell the thing, can he? I don't think. So it's not like he's going to go, right, I'm going to sell this for 10 million quid, and then he just has it off in Marbella for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he can do that. Why not?
I assumed it was royal property. Not royal property?
Well, his grandmother gave it to him. The Queen Mother gave it to him in 2004. So it was on her will. And so he's got that. And so he does own it, really. And I think he would have to think very carefully what he wants to do with that. But I think there's got, how many windows have they got? 30 rooms with lots of...
poor bloke.
Yeah.
Poor bloke.
And who needs to have so many rooms?
Well, this is it. I've got to admit, I don't like to see anybody, you know, turfed out of where they live. Don't get me wrong, I'm not calling that. But I do wonder whether or not public sympathy might be ever so slightly limited for him when you think that maybe he can sell it and make quite a bit of money off it, so he's not going to be left out on the street. And also, you know, it is quite big, right? There is that. But can I move on, Angela, to another topic? There's one I'm a bit more interested in. All right. So Meghan Markle's reported political ambitions to become the Senator for California have been quashed after Lafonso Butler was sworn in yesterday. Rumours have been swirling about a possible run for office for the Duchess ever since the death of Senator Dianne Feinstein was announced on Friday. Do you think there was ever a realistic chance of this happening, Angela?
No, none. I mean, I think her PR team, at any opportunity, want to bring her to the front pages, and they'll say anything to keep her within the sort of talking by everybody. But she could never really become a member of the cabinet, or because she doesn't. I mean, when she went to America, she made all the children aged 7 and all the teachers there sign that they wouldn't say anything nasty or rude or negative about her book. And so I think that if she's doing that, she won't want anyone to speak about her. We'll all be going to.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because. But being in politics, they say, it's like show business for ugly people, which certainly doesn't apply to Meghan Markle, by the way. But what it is kind of a glorified popularity contest. And if you are very thin-skinned and fickle and want to consistently control the narrative about yourself and the questions that you're asked and the way that you're presented, I would suggest, Angela, that going into politics is not the right career for you.
No, of course it's not. But also she wants to cling on to her titles, and you have to drop your titles if you want to do anything politically for America. Yeah. So she doesn't want to do that. And don't forget as well that the appointment is just for a year until they vote again. So she might find herself pushed out with no title. She's not going to get it back.
I just want to finish this with a little clip that, I don't know, maybe might bring a smile to people's faces. There he is. That's someone who's deeply popular. That's someone else who's deeply popular. Yes, that's the Prince and Princess of Wales. They met with Windrush veterans to help celebrate Black History Month, and William had the room laughing with his little gag. Watch.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably tell any joke if you're the future king and you'd have them in stitches, wouldn't you? Work a room. But amid the clamour for reparations, though, Angela, are the Wales the key to securing the future of the monarchy, do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, if you think there's 56 countries from the Commonwealth that voluntarily want to stay within the Commonwealth. And I think that it's very rude when young people go and visit them, that they start immediately asking for money. And if they want to be independent, King Charles and Prince William don't mind, because it's actually the joining the whole thing of the Commonwealth. You don't have to actually be part of it or, allow people to run the country.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Look, thank you very much, Angela. Angela Levin now, journalist, royal biographer. Thank you very, very much. OK, so coming up, we will debate if Rishi Sunak is looking like a winner or a loser following his pivotal speech at Tory conference. I want to hear from you on that one, OK? But next, after the PM gets a rapturous reception for asserting biological fact. That, by the way, was one of 3 distinct policy announcements at the Conservative Party conference that specifically benefited women, OK, including things like no men in women's prisons, no men in women's hospital wards. I am asking, have the Tories now positioned themselves as the party of women's rights? So, if you're a woman, or if you've got daughters, or you've got granddaughters, whatever, will that make you more inclined to vote for the Conservatives? And could that help them win the next election? My panel will be riled up and ready when they make their return. Don't you dare move.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's get stuck in. The panel are back with me now. And at the Tory party conference this week, Rishi Sunak positioned his party firmly against extreme gender ideology and embraced a common-sense approach to biological sex with a flurry of policy announcements, including a ban on trans patients in female NHS wards. Watch.
And we shouldn't get bullied into believing that people can be any sex they want to be. They can't. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. That's just common sense.
We know what a woman is, and I know the vast majority, and the vast majority of NHS staff and patients do too. That is why I ordered a reversal of unacceptable changes to the NHS website that erased references to women.
Look, I seriously think this is massive, actually, and it's going to be a big, big issue in the polling booths at the next general election. Christine, are the Tories now the party for women's rights, and could that help them win?
Well, I should jolly well hope they are. If they're not, they're snookered. I mean, I resent very, very strongly having to describe myself as a cis woman. I'm not. Yeah. I am a woman, and trans women are trans women. It is a massive insult, the way Keir Starmer, for example. I mean, talk about an own goal. He has kicked all the balls into his own goal with his stupid remark about some women can have a penis, for goodness sake. It is a massive insult to real women, cis women. Everybody knows that a woman is an adult human female. That's it. Full stop. There should be no argument. It's extraordinary. Okay. And we have, for example, we have the East Midlands Ambulance Service who have said that men can have up to 12 months paid leave if they get menopausal problems. Excuse me, the male menopause is not even clinically recognised. It's utterly absurd. They are trying to marginalise women for a minute percentage of the population who are trans, and it is absurd. And we have mixed-sex wards, so to be perfectly honest, I can't see a massive problem about trans women or trans men being in a multi-sex ward, because women are in wards with men and men are in wards with women. I suppose it would be in an overcrowded hospital setting where there's a lot of overflowing at the moment, would be if somebody, you know, with, you know, the full... Your most extreme example of an individual, right, who would demand to be put on a women's-only ward, and whether or not that hospital would have the confidence to say no to them. Most hospitals, I say, they have multi-sex wards anyway. They have to, because they're so overcrowded. But most big hospitals also have individual private rooms, so somebody, a transgender person, can go in one of those. All right, look, Adam, I'll bring you in, but just before I do, we've got a thing of Kemi Badenoch, OK? So Kemi Badenoch was talking. She's always been very strong on this. We'll play that clip. I'll get you to react to it.
Was this Conservative government that stopped shameful SNP and Labour politicians in Scotland pursuing a self-ID policy that let convicted rapists pretend that they were actually women so they could be housed in a women's prison with potential new victims. And seamlessly, just like that, we have the other big statement on gender from the Tories at conference: no men in women's prisons.
Yeah.
I speak about this a lot, and I mean a lot, on social media, because I've got 2 daughters and I don't want this future as one where there's men that are dressing up as women in their toilets, in their changing rooms, you know, everywhere where they shouldn't be, just because they want to wear women's clothes. They're not women. There's 51% of the UK population is women. This is a massive vote winner for the Conservatives.
And they tend to vote Tory.
Right,
Women
it's going to get...
Not anymore.
It's going to get a lot worse. This direction of travel with this trans agenda is going to get a lot worse under Labour. They've even got someone very close to their party that plays dress-up as a woman, right, and he's trying to become an MP.
Oh, Mr Izzard.
Mr Izzard, you know, I mention him quite a lot. Because again, this is a man with full biological male attributes that goes into women's toilets, that goes into women's changing rooms. It's not right.
OK, all right, OK. Matthew, I'll bring you just before I do, we have a little bit of an example, I think, of some of the kerfuffle that Keir Starmer gets himself into when we talk about this topic, and we compare that to what we've just heard earlier on. Here's Sir Keir.
Woman can have a penis.
Nick, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with, you know...
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just... I just...
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Look, is it transphobic? Look, I don't even know how to start answering these questions.
That's the Labour leader. That's the Shadow Chancellor. How can women vote for that?
Well, if only women could vote, we'd have a Labour government at every election for the last decade, because we've seen an historic reversal. We've seen an historic reversal. Labour has the biggest problem with men, is not with women. So,
what do you mean, if only women can vote? Women do vote.
No. Only women can vote, because more women vote Labour than anything else. Labour.
Sorry,
it's absolutely the reverse of where we were 25 years ago. Look, I think they were clips where they got themselves into a mess. They've both given much clearer answers before. My mate Wes Streeting, who's the Shadow Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, who you saw in the clip, there's Shadow. He's been absolutely clear that women can't have a penis, and you know, but there are a small minority of people who have who are on the process transitioning. On this question of NHS,
if you have a clear view of what you think a woman is, as one would hope that the leader of the Labour Party had, you would not fumble like that. You simply wouldn't stumble and not be able to answer it. He simply was desperate not to
the debate has been very reductive. Thanks, Patrick. I mean, the biggest concern, if I was a woman in an NHS hospital, is being in a mixed-sex ward. 13 years ago, the Tories promised they were going to get rid of mixed-sex wards. 13 years on, as you say, Christine, with the pressure the NHS is under, because of that, they're in. There is a very specific issue, of course, on self-ID, which I'm against, which Labour, Keir Starmer is firmly against, then it's absolutely, of course, you can't keep somebody out of ward. If somebody's transitioned legally, there'll be a legal issue about whether they are, because they are now a woman legally.
Very quickly, Adam, I think a lot of people's concern with the Labour Party is that they haven't been left with a huge pot of money, so they can't radically transform the economy, but what they can do is change the country along social lines, and the fear would be that they mess with gender.
Yeah, again, they've got someone within their party group that pretends they're a woman. And demands to be called a woman, and uses women's changing rooms and women's toilets. This is madness, and I think most of the viewers will agree with me. It's madness.
Do you think it's madness, Matthew?
Well, look, I mean, I you know, have friends who declare who identify as non-binary. I mean, clearly, they may call themselves non-binary. That's not recognised in the law. They should go into, if they went to hospital, they should go to the ward, which goes with their born gender. But if somebody's been through the position and got a legal certificate, that's different. I didn't hear what you said, Patrick.
I was going to say they're recognised by you, but we haven't got time. And also, I don't want you
to... I'm a liberal lefty.
Dig your mates out on national telly, to be fair. Right, coming up, are the doctors striking purely out of self-serving political reasons? That's what I want to know. Is it political, or is it really about the Wonga? Free Speech Union founder Toby Young weighs in on that soon. But next, as a bombshell new poll finds that the majority of the public think Rishi Sunak is doing a bad job delivering his 5 key pledges. Has the Prime Minister's speech today convinced you that he can fundamentally change the country, or should it be Starmer? We're going to have a debate on that. Don't move.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office.
Got a bit of a mixed picture as we end off the day. We've got rain lingering across parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland. Will just sink its way southwards into parts of Northern England as well before generally petering off into the second half of the night. Though some other areas of rain just beginning to push their way into parts of Northern Ireland throughout the early hours as well. A good amount of cloud around will hold up the temperatures for most places around 11-13 degrees Celsius, but parts of northern Scotland will drop off a touch more down into those single figure values under the clearer skies we have here. This rain will then spread its way in as we head throughout Thursday. Quite a damp start to the day for Northern Ireland, then into Western Scotland, Western England and Wales also seeing a fair amount of rain throughout the day. Past southeastern areas of England, though, staying largely dry with some sunny spells here, so a relatively fine day across the board. Will be quite breezy for most of us, taking the edge off some of those temperatures a touch, but 19 degrees Celsius possible in the south, generally more around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius further north. Into Friday, this mixture of low pressure and high pressure continues. Generally high pressure stuck towards the south, helping to keep things relatively fine and dry, but this trailing frontal system across northern areas will continue to bring outbreaks of rain at times, could turn quite persistent really into areas of Scotland, particularly once this next pulse moves in later on in the day. But further towards the south, again, a good amount of sunshine as we head into the afternoon and into the weekend as well. Those temperatures are beginning to climb well above average for the time of year, reaching the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm Patrick Christie's, and this is GB News Tonight. And Rishi Sunak goes for broke in Manchester, telling Tory conference as well as the country that he's a change maker, that he's a winner. But did he win the support of my panel? Tonight, I'm joined by Christine Hamilton, I've got Adam Brooks, and of course, I've got Matthew Laza as well. Plus, as the government begins talks with Estonia over renting their prison cells, would it be wrong to bang up Brits abroad? We will debate that very soon. Should we send our crims on a plane somewhere? Elsewhere, after NHS chiefs warn that striking doctors are putting lives at risk, are the walkouts selfish? Is it all about politics and not actually about the money? Free Speech Union founder Toby Young weighs in hard on that. And the royal sword bearer Penny Mordaunt gave a rip-roaring speech, not seen since Henry V at Agincourt.
Stand up and fight. Stand up and fight.
All right. That's not, no, fair enough. Anyway, never a dull moment at party conference, and comedy legend Jim Davidson joins me to round up the week in Uncancelled Plus after it was finally confirmed this afternoon that the government will get back on track by derailing northern leg of HS2. Well, I'm asking, will they get back on track? That's tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, tomorrow's front pages. They are just minutes away. In fact, I've had a sneak peek, and there is some good stuff on the front pages, so you're not going to want to miss that. But first, it's your news with Polly Middlehurst.
Patrick, thank you, and good evening to you. Well, the main news tonight is that the Prime Minister today confirmed the northern leg of HS2 is to be scrapped. He was speaking at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, and he talked about the high-speed rail network after weeks of speculation, instead unveiling a plan for Network North, saying the £36 million saved would be better spent developing northern transport routes. The eastern leg to East Midland Parkway is also scrapped. HS2, we understand, will still run from London Euston to Manchester, but will run on existing tracks from Birmingham onwards. Here's what he said.
We'll reinvest every single penny, £36 billion, in hundreds of new transport projects in the North and the Midlands across the country. This means £36 billion of investment in the projects that will make a real difference across our nation.
Well, in reaction to that, the former Prime Minister David Cameron criticised the announcement, saying that a once-in-a-generation opportunity had been lost. And the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, said the new investment plan didn't create a coherent transport network. But Mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, said while he's disappointed at the decision, he believes, all in all, it's a good compromise. Let's just bring some news we're receiving in the last hour or so that Just Stop Oil protesters have interrupted tonight's performance of Les Miserables at the Sondheim Theatre in London. Take a look. Well, if you're listening on radio, our television viewers are looking at the performance being interrupted by Just Stop Oil protesters holding up their banners. 4 members, in fact, of the environmental activist group locking themselves to the stage as well of that French Revolution-themed musical. Actors, as you heard, stopped the performance while stage management attempted to get the activists off stage. Audience members took it upon themselves to shout at the protesters to get off the stage. Now, in other news tonight, the Sunderland man who died after being attacked by an XL bully dog has been named by Northumbria Police as Ian Langley. Police attended the incident last night following reports a dog had injured the 54-year-old who was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. A 44-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder and an investigation has been launched. The dog itself was destroyed at the scene. A second dog had to be seized. A 6th person has been arrested in connection with the Crooked House pub fire in Staffordshire. A 23-year-old man from Leicestershire was arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to commit arson with intent. He's been released on conditional bail while the investigation continues. 4 men and 1 woman were previously arrested in connection with the fire that destroyed the iconic pub back in August. And lastly, the UK and Ireland are set to host the Euros in 2028, pending final approval from UEFA's Executive Committee next week. It comes as Turkey withdrew its bid to host the European Football Championships. It will instead merge its bid with Italy and aim for 2032. 10 stadia in the UK were selected to host matches, including Glasgow's Hampden Park, the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Dublin's Al Viva Stadium and Wembley in London. With GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Right, tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. Let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages. They are hot off the press. The first one has landed. That's right, it's Rishi. I'm on track for victory. That's the headline in the Metro as the Prime Minister promises to change Britain and win the next election. Today, at the Tory party conference, the Prime Minister insisted the scrapping of the northern leg of HS2 was a sign of his courage. You know what I find most annoying about the scrapping of HS2? Is that it forces me to continually say the letter H Because when I say that, everyone emails me to say it's either H, it's not H. I don't know. Anyway, either way, I'll do away with the whole thing so that I never have to refer to that again. But my panel are back with me. Author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Great stuff. Now, Rishi Sunak delivered his much-anticipated speech at conference today, branding the Tories as the party of bold and radical change. Let's watch this bold and radical man in action, shall we?
The Labour Party have set out their stall to do and say as little as possible and hopes no one notices. They want to take people's votes for granted and keep doing politics the same old way. So if this country is to change, then it can only be us who will deliver it. Today I will set out how we will achieve this, beginning with a set of long-term decisions to build a brighter future for our children and to fundamentally change our country.
No, it's bold. It's radical. But a bombshell new poll has revealed that a majority of Brits think the Prime Minister is doing a bad job fulfilling his 5 key pledges: to halve inflation, to grow the economy, to reduce national debt, to cut NHS waiting lists and to stop the small boats. So, Adam, has Sunak convinced you today and in the last year that he can fundamentally change the country? I will say this, I think that he's in a better position than he's ever been since taking over.
I've been a big critic of Rishi Sunak. I think his last year as Chancellor, he went missing, and I didn't like what he was doing behind the scenes. I think his first year as Prime Minister, he's been missing. He's sat on the fence. He's never had any sort of robust policies and shown prime ministerial behaviour. Okay. I've seen a big change over the last 2 weeks with the net zero speech. I think that was very powerful and that hits home with a lot of people. And with against the trans agenda and for women's rights. I think these are massive calls and he's shown bravery. For the first time, I think he looks and sounds like a Prime Minister. But is it enough for me to vote for them? No, it isn't. Okay. I want to see action. I want to see these boats turned around. I want to see a lot more for me to be able to, you know, hold my nose and vote for them. And avoid a Labour government.
Christine, I think people are wrong when they say it's going to be a Labour landslide. Genuinely, I think that it is a very, very, very close-run thing, and I've got a feeling that come election time, we are going to be talking about things being neck and neck, and there might be a shock on election night. Your views?
I think they'll certainly be a lot closer than people were assuming until recently. But Adam's right. Rishi Sunak has stepped forward with all those big issues. But the trouble is they've spent 13 years failing to be Conservatives, and they can't suddenly... They've got maybe till next May, maybe till October, and they're pretending to be Conservatives. What is going to win the next election is change. That is what always wins elections. The great big election winners recent years, Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair, and what they offered was massive change. And the trouble with the Tories, ever since the war, every time the socialists get in, they ratchet up socialism, more nationalisation, more socialist policies. When the Tories get in, they never turn it back. They just accept what's been done and then they go on. But Thatcher did. Thatcher turned back the tide. Blair turned back the tide. So it's change is what people want. And if Rishi can offer that, all they've been good at recently, of course, is changing their Prime Minister. I mean, goodness knows, what have we had, 5 or something? In the last year, Sunak has not impressed me, but the last couple of weeks, like Adam, I begin to think there may be a chance.
I'll tell you this much, this is one of the main takeaways I had from storming around Tory party conference was actually the level of anger amongst Tory party members that many of them voted for Boris Johnson, who won an election. Right, whatever happened, then happened. We don't need to raise the dead there. But then they voted for Liz Truss over Rishi Sunak, and then she was ousted. And now they've got Rishi Sunak. And we've had a lot of economic policies until potentially very recently, well, even now, that a lot of Tory party members aren't happy with. They don't think it is very conservative. I think there is a problem, Matthew, for Rishi, that he doesn't necessarily appeal to the base. Do you think there's any chance of that changing?
Yeah, I think it doesn't necessarily appeal to the base. And I also don't think he appeals to the red wall. What's quite interesting about the announcements today, of the 3 big announcements, which were re-announcements because they'd already been previewed, just on an aside, the Golden Rule of a conference speech is always have a rabbit from a hat. Yes, of course, you preview stories going into it. As a former spin doctor, what you do, though, is you have a story that nobody knows about. You always pull something, and he didn't have anything very exciting to say today. Had already been trailed.
You know what I think he will have, and this is going to be a big problem for the Labour Party, albeit Labour conference next week, is that every time Keir Starmer opens his mouth, something deeply unpopular comes out.
No, that's not. Well, that's not what the polls say, because even the closest poll has shown a 10-point lead. I agree. It's going to be a lot closer. It's not going to be a Labour landslide. Nobody in the Labour Party high command thinks that, and they think there's a battle ahead.
Tell you what, though, Christine, if you get a hung Parliament, what do you get? You get voting reform. You get a closer relationship with the European Union because it's Lib Lab.
But the trouble with Keir Starmer is people don't really know what he stands for, because he
doesn't stand for anything.
I hate to use the word, but he is Mr. Flip-Flop. And here are my principles, and if you don't like them, I've got another set, which will do exactly.
Next week he's going to set out his vision, Christine.
OK, well, let's wait for his vision, but I expect it
to take us back into
Europe.
Europe.
The week after.
It will not be to take us back into the EU. I can promise you that. Nor will there be compulsory veganism.
He will, in all but name. He will take us back into the EU, but it won't be in the EU. He will do it in all but name.
Look, you know what's really interesting about this election? Well, one of the many things that I find interesting is that, as far as I can tell, the main thing that Keir Starmer's got going for him is that he isn't a Tory, and the main thing that Rishi Sunak's got going for him is that he isn't Keir Starmer. And that's just the public. But as a public, I'm sorry, but as a British public, this proud nation, 2 World Wars, 1 World Cup, doo-dah, all of that, we deserve better than this offering. I'm sorry, we just deserve better.
Well, I think we deserve a better.
We haven't got a choice. It's going to be one of the other.
Yeah.
So a lot of people I know are going to hold their nose and vote Tory, so Keir Starmer and some of his rabble don't get in. And that is the truth.
The Labour Party's problem is that they've got Keir Starmer and they haven't got, for example, Andy Burnham or your mate Wes Streeting. They've got the wrong person leading the party.
I wouldn't be so scared of a Labour government under Andy Burnham. He talks quite a lot of sense.
We'd be much more likely to get one under Andy Burnham, I think.
I mean, look, Andy's doing a great job in Manchester. I work, I think that our strength is in the team, and I think, we've got fresh voices like Wes to bring.
All right, OK, I'm going to draw a line under this now, because I want to bring you this. So, Tory party members were dancing in the moonlight last night with a British rock band. They're a rock band anyway, Top Loader, serenading the party's conference with some of their best-loved hits. Watch.
Well, we are.
Sorry, everybody. But, of course, they were never going to be safe from the woke pylon. The band was slammed online for daring to perform at, God forbid, the Conservative conference with comments like this. Fair play to Top Loader, always hated them and felt a bit guilty about it. Nah, they've given me a reason. Yep, cheers, mate. Christine, one thing that I find interesting, especially interesting, is that there was even some Tory gay individuals who were at a drag show in Manchester. They got booted out of that drag show for being Tories, OK? And now we've got even bands like Top Loader, just, let's be honest with you, receiving money to play a gig, which is what that is, and now they're getting slated because they happen to be performing for Conservatives.
Well, politics has become much more toxic, and social media has largely to blame, and what a lot of people write on social media is they probably wouldn't say it to your face. So, of course, a band should be free. If they want to perform at a Tory conference, it should be up to them. But equally, you can understand if you're a massive Labour supporter and your favourite band, you see them performing at a Tory conference, you're not going to be best pleased, are you?
It doesn't really matter, though, does it? I mean, they're paid to do gigs. I would argue that they're trying to put pressure on other bands and other groups and other people. But then you see, Matthew, I was at Labour conference last year, and shock horror, he didn't really want to be on the telly. Richard Osman walks through, wanders out again. It's cool to be seen at Labour conference, isn't it? But you go to the Tories, you get cancelled.
Yeah, the Tories have always struggled on the celebrity endorsements. I'm not saying that was an endorsement. I think the problem with social media, as you say, is it's not like they were opening up for Rishi's speech. They were playing at a reception at a party. Yeah. So it's hard to pile on. I think if they'd come out and said, I'm backing Rishi, then I think it's OK for people to say, I disagree with you.
Hang on a minute, but so what, right? So what? Why is it always OK, Adam, for someone to come out and go, oh, I'm voting Green, or I'm voting Lib Dem?
Well, it's not pile on them.
Can I tell you exactly why?
It's not cool to be
Because
Tory.
over the last few years, we've had people like Angela Rayner describe the Tories as scum, as I think she said homophobe, or she
Banana Republic.
Right, she listed a load of slurs.
It wasn't her finest hour.
So you've had people like David Lammy that have said that Brexiteers are like Nazis. You've had, from the left, you've had some real bad rhetoric that labels people on the side of the right as bad people. And a lot of the youngsters have swallowed this nonsense and they won't forgive. And that is the truth.
I think there's a good test. Lee Anderson has the...
Well, it's become toxic from the top down for the reasons that you described.
Well, Lee Anderson has a good test. Obviously, I used to knock on doors of the Labour Party with Lee, but he has a good test now, which is when he's walking in the House of Commons, half the Labour people will say hello to him and half of them won't.
Yeah.
Give him, just give him the time of day. And he says that Keir always does.
Hang on a minute, cancel culture only really exists on the left.
It does.
Yeah, well,
I don't think that's true. I mean, I think I think that.
Go on, give me an example.
Well, there's lots of pile-ons on. I mean, people like George Clooney or Emma Thompson for their stance on climate change. I mean, some of the.
But that's rampant hypocrisy.
The tolerance is not there. I don't know any person on the right that wouldn't date someone or be friends with someone because they're on the left. But the opposite way round.
A trot.
The other way round. They are just.
I've never kissed a Tory or a trot.
They are just liar.
I'm not sure on either front.
Liar. This is deranged behaviour, and we get it from the left.
You get people walking,
right.
we showed a clip earlier on, we got people walking outside the Tory party conference, masked up, looking
they're
like
nothing
fascists.
to do with the Labour Party. They're hard left activists. And I can tell you, when Labour's in power,
Tory,
they'll be outside the Labour conference just as much.
Do you think?
We had
no way.
I can tell you, as somebody who was there in those conferences during the Iraq War, where we had armed police officers everywhere we went. I can tell you, the far left mob will be there for Labour in government, even more so.
But a band gets criticised for dancing or for praying at the Tory party conference. People get criticised for coming on GB News too.
Yeah, they do. Thanks again, Matthew.
Many of them.
Right, OK, so coming up...
You'll be cancelled by the Labour Party shortly.
I'm cancelling all of you now because we've got to move on. So coming up, after Daniel Cleese's daring escape from Wandsworth Prison rocked the prison's system, should the government ease overcrowding by sending crims to jail abroad? Can we actually seriously get criminals on a plane and send them abroad? Is this just Rwanda Mark II? My panel returns to debate that very shortly. But first, as NHS chiefs warn walkouts are putting patients' lives at risk, are doctor strikes selfish and purely political? When I talk to junior doctors, it very quickly starts to get into a situation where, oh, we spent loads of money on the coronation. Oh, Tory this, Tory that. It's not just about the money. Toby Young tackles that, and that is next.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hey, welcome back. Now, comedy legend Jim Davidson is just moments away. What could go wrong? But it's time now for free speech champion Toby Young. And I think it's about time people raise this, OK? NHS chiefs have warned that doctors' strikes, which were massive over Tory party conference, are putting patient safety at risk. Well, I mean, duh. Writing to the British Medical Association to say that the Christmas Day level of cover offered by the union was insufficient. The latest round of walkouts will continue tomorrow, which will be the 23rd day of industrial action by junior doctors since February, which is absolutely ludicrous, obviously. And yesterday, doctors said that they would keep striking until there was a Labour government, after ministers vowed to take on militant union leaders. So there we go. Toby, thank you for entering the fray. Now, I interview junior doctors quite a lot when they'll come on, which actually is happening less and less because they don't like the kind of questions that I ask. Questions, you know, such as, actually, are you a Labour Party member and is it just a Labour government that you want? Very quickly, it descends into, oh, well, we've got money for the coronation, haven't we? Or, oh, well, Rishi Sunak did this or that. It's not actually about paying conditions, I don't think, Toby, or is it?
Well, it doesn't seem like a realistic ask on the part of the junior doctors. The average pay rise across the public sector this year has been 6%. The nurses, after they threatened to go out on strike, got a 5% pay rise. The junior doctors are asking for a 35% pay rise, which is just pie in the sky, cloud cuckoo land. They're obviously not going to get it. It's completely unrealistic. Why are they asking for it? Why are they making such an unreasonable demand? Because they don't want to reach any kind of settlement with the government. They want to continue to strike because they don't want the waiting list to decrease. And why is that? Because they think that the waiting lists will be a big issue in the forthcoming general election, and they want Labour to win and the Tories to lose. And
but then people die. This is the thing. People die, right? There are real-world consequences for this. I find that absolutely disgraceful, to be perfectly honest with you. I would, in Patrick Christie's Britain, this will be controversial, and I'm very sorry anybody out there who disagrees with me, OK? I know that I have a bit of an out-there view on this. I would ban them from striking. I would. And if they're saying that they're going to stop striking until they get a Labour government, well, Labour hasn't promised them anything, so I don't understand what they're going to do then.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that that they'll get a higher pay award under a Labour government. So there's no rational reason, if their only motive is to increase doctors' pay, for making such an unreasonable demand and waiting until the next government in the hope the next government will meet them halfway. Actually, the Labour government will be even tougher when it comes to demands for pay rises of this nature across the public sector. You know, they'll have the advantage of supposedly being on the side of the NHS, and that'll give them a bit more. The only possible motive, Patrick, is that they want to destabilise this government. They don't want the waiting list to decline. They want to try and embarrass the Conservative government in the hope that that'll damage them in the forthcoming election.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree with you. I know that some people will say, look, we're massively overworked, we're massively overstretched. I think two things can exist at the same time. That you can be overworked and that you can feel the pressure and that you can feel the stress and that you can feel as though you're underpaid, but you can also want to bring down a Conservative government that you ideologically disagree with, and you are willing, it would seem, to allow people to die in order for that to happen. But, Toby, is there a wider issue here than just the junior doctors, the consultants who can be on about £130,000 a year, by the way, and the radiographers as well, who all walked out to time perfectly with the Conservative Party conference, alongside the train drivers as well, by the way, or rail workers, I should say, broaden it out a little bit. Suella Braverman and a few other people spoke about a left-wing radical capture of our institutions. Do you think that's what's happened? Have we been eaten alive from the inside as a nation by politically motivated individuals?
Well, I think many British institutions have been captured by the woke left, and the NHS is certainly a prime example of that. And it's been interesting, actually, at this Tory party conference, there's been a real shift towards leaning into the culture war. Until a few weeks ago, the kind of conventional wisdom in the Conservative Party was that leaning into the culture war is a vote loser. People don't care about issues like are trans women women? Should there be gender-neutral toilets in the NHS and so on and so forth? The conventional wisdom has been they care about bread and butter, retail politics. That's just an obsession of people like you and I, Patrick. But there appears to have been a change of heart about that, and they're finally leaning into these issues. Yeah. But it's as though, you know, Rishi Sunak is trying to position himself as the leader of the opposition. He's talking about himself as a change candidate and Keir Starmer as the status quo candidate. It's as if the Conservatives haven't been, you know, in Downing Street for the past 30 years. So it's a slightly kind of difficult wicket.
Absolutely, absolutely. He's having to try, as you've rightly said there, to present himself as, you know, a new version of the Conservative Party. In order to do that, unfortunately, that involves criticising pretty much everything the Conservatives have done before, which shows weakness. But they are ramping up the culture wars, and I think they're right to do it because, and I will keep saying this till I'm blue in the face, if Labour come into government, they will not have the money to do the kinds of things that they would want to do economically. So, in terms of change, it would be societal change. It would be things like culture. But, Toby, thank you very much. As ever, much appreciated. That's Toby Young there, who, of course, fronts up the Free Speech Union. But I've got a comment here from Professor Phil Banfield, who's the chairman of the BMA's councils. This is in response to that discussion that we've just had there. Nice braces, by the way, rainbow-coloured braces. You love to see it, about whether or not it's just political, these strikes. What he says is this. The union was strongly committed to ensuring that patients are safe during strikes. Actual staffing is higher than Christmas and Boxing Day, given doctors, various non-striking consultants and junior doctors, as well as allied health professionals, continue to work as normal. So that's his views there, and I know that there will be a huge amount of people out there right now watching this who think that we should just give the doctors and nurses and whatever money they want because they do save lives. I'm sympathetic to that view, but I always come down on if people die as a result of strikes. For me, that strike is not justified. So that's where I'm at. But coming up in Uncancelled, Britain's favourite entertainer, Jim Davidson, gives his colourful take on some of the Tory party conference's lighter moments, including Suella's run-in with a dog. But first, should we ease pressure on our prison system by banging up Brits abroad? That is the plan unveiled by Justice Secretary Alex Chalk. My panel have their say on that next. Can we really essentially deport our own criminals just to bring them back a little bit later on? It's Rwanda Mark 2, isn't it? Back in 3.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30am.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's turn now to tomorrow's news tonight in our Media Buzz. More front pages for you. They've just been delivered. Here we go. So, Sunak turns on 13 years of Tory rule with spending trap for Starmer. That's the headline in the Eye. The paper says that the Prime Minister rounded on his Tory predecessors with its pledge to end 30 years of political status quo. Interesting, though, they're acknowledged that Rishi Sunak has actually set a political trap for Keir Starmer. We're getting to a really interesting point in British politics now, which is good. But The Guardian says that Sunak has ignited a Tory party civil war after declaring he is the change candidate. His decision to scrap the northern leg of HS2 has been criticised by former Prime Minister David Cameron. To that I say, who cares? The Daily Mail front page toasts Rishi's speech today at the Tory party conference, claiming the PM has given Conservatives a reason to believe that he can save us, they say, from Keir's wokery. The Telegraph is also leading with the Prime Minister's speech earlier today. There's a theme here, isn't there? The paper says that Sunak invoked Margaret Thatcher as he tried to rebrand himself as a force of change. There certainly was a lot of Margaret Thatcher-related merchandise at the Conservative Party conference there. I wonder how much Tony Blair clobber there'll be at Labour's next week. More on the Media Buzz now with tonight's panel. Author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Lanza. So, yes, I mean, loads of good stuff on the front pages there, of course, but this is important. His Majesty's Prison Service could be about to go global. That's because the Justice Secretary, Alex Chalk, is in talks with European countries, including Estonia, over renting their prison cells as a means to tackling the chronic shortage on British shores. There is a joke in there somewhere about their prisons being empty because all their criminals have come over here, but I wouldn't make it because that would be unfair and wrong. But here he is, making the announcement at Tory party conference.
And we're expanding and refurbishing existing prisons and hiring thousands more prison officers. And I can tell you today, conference, that we also intend to look at the Norwegian example and explore renting overseas capacity.
Well, yeah, Alex Chalk now wanting to look at the Norwegian model, and who can blame him? Indeed, Norway and Belgium have rented cells from the Netherlands in the past, and new legislation will be included in next month's King's Speech to allow for prisoners being sent to overseas jails. Right, look, should we be banging up Brits abroad? Christine?
Well, it doesn't seem very British, does it? We've got to do something there. The prison population is bursting. There basically are no spaces.
I mean, call me a radical, but we could build more prisons.
Well, I was just about to say, the problem with this country is with short-termism. It's the political system encourages short-termism. People look ahead to the next election. They don't. We should have been, just like we should have been building more nuclear power stations. We should have been building more prisons. We should never have allowed this situation to develop. But given that we have, and I think we need tougher sentences, it's no point just saying because we haven't got prison spaces, we're going to let people off. If renting spaces abroad, but what do you do about visiting rights? How can you expect somebody...
Well, you've hit the nail on the head as to exactly why I don't think this will happen. The ECHR will get involved as well.
Exactly.
We're going to be confronted with a load of lads from Wythenshawe on a plane, right, about to be sent to Estonia, and then all of a sudden the lights go out of the airport. We'll have a live feed on the runway on this show, and it won't happen.
No, but this is the thing. You know, Norway and Belgium have done it. There was no outrage in any of the media anywhere.
And they're both in the ECHR.
If we do if we do it, the lefty lawyers and the courts will have a field day. And the lefty media will go mad. But at the end of the day, if I committed a crime and I thought I could end up in Estonia or Netherlands or whatever, away from my family, that might make me think twice about doing what I'm doing. So it could have a deterrent.
So you'd be all right with Wormwood Scrubs, but you draw the line. Draw the line at Norway.
At the end of the day,
you know, it'd be a much nicer cell in a Norway. Have you seen a Norwegian prison? They really are.
I think the point, to be fair, is that Norway outsourced. But I get what you mean. Yeah,
but look, if we can't build them, we've got to put them somewhere. We can't just put them on tags and let them go and do more.
Maybe Stockholm.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Vicky Stockholm. It's not going to happen.
This is it, though, isn't it?
I like to say how many asylum seekers in Rwanda zero, how many on the bar zero. It's not going to happen.
From a moral standpoint, Matthew, are you morally opposed to sending a murderer to Estonia?
I think the only way it could work if there's a very small number of people who were going to be deported immediately after leaving the country, because clearly visiting rights are not just a privilege; they're also part of making sure that prisoners are going to be rehabilitated into society, have a link into society and a purpose when they come out. So clearly, as you said, you hit the nail on the head. We should have been building more prisons. It's ironic, isn't it? He's got long-term decisions for the country's future, but he didn't build enough prisons over the last 13 years.
If we can send billions to Ukraine, we should be able to build prisons to hold dangerous people in our society.
I mean, there is that.
At the end of the day.
There is that. And this is coming up more and more often. I mean, America's having big issues with this right now. You know, and these are tough things. I get that some people will go, well, the cost of not helping Ukraine is potentially even greater. And there is a school of thought that says that, right? There is a school of thought that
says that. Our society is collapsing because of lack of money and lack of investment.
But we need a sensible government at home.
We need to balance it up a little bit better. It rubs the noses in people, like taxpayers' money. They've had no say in the billions going to Ukraine. If you asked a taxpayer voter, they would want prisons being built.
The Ukrainians are fighting and dying, fighting a proxy war for the West.
Absolutely.
I believe they deserve all the possible support we can give them.
Absolutely fine. With respect, I'm going to just veer us back slightly more on topic.
On prisons. What Alex Chalk didn't say is it's going to be incredibly expensive. The Estonians will rent you space, or the Dutch will rent you space because they're going to make a profit on it. They're not doing it out of kindness to help this government along, or indeed any British government along. And so he didn't actually say, yes, we might be able to rent some space, but it's going to cost a fortune. Wait for those headlines.
Christine, is this not just another example of the fact that we've got too many people in this country now? Some of them are criminals.
Indeed, some of them are criminals, and quite a lot of the immigrants tend to end up as criminals. They arrive.
It's a little bit harsh.
Going to push back on that slightly, Christine.
Okay, push back on it, but quite a lot of them do. And if an immigrant comes in and is found to have committed a criminal act, what is wrong with sending them back?
You're talking about it's illegal.
Yeah,
right.
Or a
remember, illegal immigration itself is a crime.
Going back to their country of origin to serve their sentence?
I think more is the point is how many foreign criminals have we got? in our prison community right now.
Yeah.
And if that is a large number, I haven't seen the data, we must look maybe to repatriate them back to the country to serve their time.
And
that's how I
think that's something. I take what you're saying. I think if we can kind of frame it in the sense of, is it right to have anyone who has committed a crime abroad or does not have a British passport who commits a crime in this country, should we not just deport them? I think that's possibly what we were getting at there, isn't it? Matthew, your views finally on that. Maybe we could clear up a bit of prison space by deporting
I think that's, if you're going to use it, absolutely only use it for people who've got who are not British citizens, because actually the connections to the community and of course things like gaining skills here that people can use when they come out, because we want people to not reoffend to keep our streets safer.
OK, I mean, another option, very quickly, Christine, might be to decriminalise certain things like drugs.
Oh, well, that's you open up a whole can of worms if you do that. That is I find the whole drugs situation difficult, and I used to think that actually decriminalising drugs was a good idea. I've changed my mind. I don't think it is. Well, because I think we will then end up with a far worse problem than we've got now. But I know it would stop a lot of crime, because so much crime is drug-related.
It would end up killing many addicts, many thousands of addicts in this country. I've got 3 children. I don't want them growing up in a world where it's easy to go to a shop or the local corner and get drugs legally. That's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a realistic chance.
Well, cigarettes are going to be
no politician will touch it, but look at Portugal.
Aren't they?
But look at Portugal, where it's happened, and it has a very positive impact on crime, and means the police can concentrate on other crime.
Just purely talking in the context of whether or not it'd free up some prison cells, I suppose. Right, coming up, is it wrong for an NHS trust to offer slavery reparations to Jamaica as the waiting list approaches 8 million? We will debate as I crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But next, in Uncancelled, the moment you've all been waiting for, Britain's favourite entertainer, Jim Davidson, gives his colourful take on some of the Tory party conference's lighter moments, including Suella's run-in with a dog. Stay tuned.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for Uncancelled. And I'm delighted to say that I am joined now by comedy legend Jim Davidson. Jim, great stuff. Thank you very much. And Jim, I wanted to get your reaction for some of the best areas, good lad, for some of the best and bizarre stuff that happened at the Tory party conference. So first, Penny Mordaunt gave her best Henry V impression earlier today in a rallying cry to the Tory faithful. Let's remind ourselves.
Stand up and fight
Because when you stand up and fight, the person beside you stands up and fights. And when our party stands up and fights, the nation stands up and fights. And when our nation stands up and fights, other nations stand up and fight. Have courage. Bring hope. Stand up and fight. Stand up and fight. Thank you, conference.
Jim, I think she wants you to stand up and fight.
I think she might do. I think she ought to fight her way back into drama school and learn how to speak properly. I mean, that was absolutely appalling. They're all trying to be Churchill or trying to be Thatcher. Useless. Patrick, just a couple of seconds. Good to see you on here, mate. I'm a big fan. But I formed a charity called Care After Combat that looks after veterans in the criminal justice system. For the facts are, we have 88,000 people in prison. 4% of them are veterans. And Care After Combat have reduced reoffending down to about 8%. Brilliant job. But the reports I'm getting is there are so many foreign nationals in our prisons now. It is absolutely staggering. You wouldn't believe it. I've been in prison lots and lots and lots of times. One thing you might think about is do not give anyone a prison sentence of less than 6 months. It's an absolute waste of time. You go in there for nicking a bag of sugar and you come out a Brinks Mat robber. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, sorry, I've said my.
Oh, it's all right. Jim. So you're not Penny Morden's biggest fan. Some people will love that, right? Some people will go, that is fantastic. This is the woman who held the sword at the coronation. We love a bit of Penny.
Yeah, great. Wave your arms. Try and be Churchillian. Get a life. Where can we have some politicians that speak from the heart rather than just read the autocue or just some idiot speech? Useless.
Yeah, what kind of idiot would read an autocue, Jim? Moving on.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage was filmed.
Back to you in the studio.
Yeah, back to you in the studio. Ad-lib the time. OK, now, up next, Nigel Farage was filmed singing along to Frank Sinatra alongside Priti Patel, the former Home Secretary. It was at a late-night conference shindig. I know, I was there. Watch this. I love you, Jimmy. So, yeah, what do you make of that?
Thank choreographer as Penny Morden's speech. I love you, Mary. You know, the great thing about Nigel Farage, he drinks like a fish. I've never seen him drunk. He's always like that. You know, he turns up at the restaurant like that, and he does look like a dad dancer, doesn't he? He really does look. Now, the word round the campfire is he going to join the Conservative Party? I don't think he is. You know him as well as I do, probably more than me. But unless the Conservative Party change and want him, I think he could drag with Lee Anderson as well, and a couple of the others that have got a bit of common sense. Maybe you, Patrick, you should take that leap of faith, get the young vote. You know what I mean? You are sort of a bit Hollywood.
I'm a bit Hollywood. I tell you what, whatever. Yeah, whatever the question is in terms of what would make this country better, I'm not sure I'm the answer, Jim, to be fair. But it would be good fun. I tell you what, we'd have fun for a week and then we'd all be dead. I think that's fair. That's what would happen.
Well, it's not bad. People say to me, Jim, you should be Prime Minister. Oh, yeah. For how long? 20 minutes. How long would that last, really?
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be a great 20 minutes. Don't you worry about that. Oh.
Now, Jim, Suella Braverman, OK, she caused a stir when she was spotted accidentally... I shouldn't laugh, actually, but spotted accidentally standing on a guide dog's tail. You know, there's got to be a joke in there somewhere. After the incident, the Home Secretary issued an apology...
I'll do it, Patrick.
Go on, Jim. She issued an apology to all dogs everywhere. Jim, take it away.
Well, the guide dogs are just sensational, and also the people that train them. But guide dogs are used to being stepped on by people that can't quite see where their guide dog is. That's the whole point. But the thing is here is that Suella, or Suella DeVille, as now she's called in the dog world, right? She wants to ban these bully dogs, you know, the American bully dogs.
Yeah.
Oh, and now she stepped on the guide dog's tail. Them bully dogs are going to gang up on her because dogs talk. There's a little dog network. You know this guide dog? Hey, I've just been tread on by some Suella Creville woman. Come on, you bully dogs. Get down and give her the good news. You know what? I'd have some guards outside your door, Suella, because them dogs are coming for you. Don't you worry about that.
Well, as long as the dogs don't come for you, Jim, because we need you here at GB News. And thank you very, very much for coming on. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Jim Davidson, everybody, fan favourite, legend. Thank you. Now, it is time to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. OK, all right. So I'm going to start with Christine. There we go. Who's your Greatest Britain?
Well, it is no surprise Suella Braverman for her barnstorming speech, plain-speaking speech. That woman has got balls of steel. At last, we've had some good plain speaking. So she is my Greatest Britain today.
It's funny, isn't it? Because obviously the gender ideology thing is being very key to the Tory party conference. The amount of people who've come out and gone, Suella's got balls, I find fascinating. Anyway, Adam, go on, who's your Greatest Britain?
On that note, I'm nominating three women, three very brave women that have put their head above the parapet and fought back against this gender ideology. It's Sharon Davis, J.K. Rowling and Rosie Duffield, because they've taken threats, they've taken a lot of flack, and they haven't backed down. And suddenly we're starting to see society, you know, pushing back too. And it's because of these sort of women that have fought for their own rights. Fantastic.
Hey, well, we're off to a strong start there. It's very hard to argue with that, of course it is. I mean, the strength of character that especially those women show there is remarkable, given the total onslaught. Matthew, take it away, Greatest Britain.
Mine is going cross-party, is Andy Street, the Tory Mayor of the West Midlands, who working with, him working cross-party with the Labour mayors from across the north of England for trying to put together a rescue plan to keep HS2 on tracks and actually use private sector money to try and save the taxpayer.
Yeah, it was a bit weird with Andy Street. I mean, I think I was kind of expecting him to go, and then the announcement was that there was no announcement, which was like something out of the thick of it, really. So, that kind of thing like Wolf, a really unenthusiastic, low-energy Wolf of Wall Street, which is just saying, I'm not leaving. Actually, I'm not going to leave. So there we go. Right, I get to decide now, don't I? I'm obviously going to go for Suella Braverman. And so there we go. Christine Hamilton has nominated and won with Suella Braverman. Right, OK, next. Christine, take it away with your Union Jackass.
Well, here goes. Hope for the double whammy. It is the Lothian NHS Trust who are offering reparations to Jamaica while our health service is in crisis. In 1750, a surgeon apparently gave £40 million, a monumental amount of money, to the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh. This is virtue signalling. It is a grotesque waste of taxpayers' money. I don't know how many people they've got on their personal waiting list, but they will have lots of people waiting for operations.
Anyone's too many. You know, when you look at what a lot of these hospitals are doing, whether you're painting a rainbow on the side of it, or whether you're doing anything, whether you're employing someone who's like an arts commissioner, when you look down the job adverts for a lot of these hospitals, you have to ask, as indeed I do, right, why on earth is somebody who you're bringing in to do something diversity related, why are they worth the equivalent of 3 nurses? You know, how do you justify that? I don't quite understand how on earth you justify that. But I have to read this now. Tackling racial inequality and racism is a core part of what NHS Lothian does. This is obviously a statement from them. This helps us contribute to a health and care system where everyone at Lothian lives longer, healthier lives. And that's obviously the end of that discussion. Adam, who's your Union Jackass?
Right, I'm going with the media, and especially the mainstream media, for not covering the communist youth march that was seen outside the Tory conference. They was blacked up, they had masks, they had flags. It was very, very sinister. And if that was the far right or a group on the right, this would have been front page news.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is scary.
I'm sorry, but that is sinister, OK? It really is. And why would you want to do that? Why would you want to look like that? It looks threatening.
Patrick, I did a tweet on this with a video, and the last time I checked, which was earlier today, it had over 2 million views, that tweet. So people are interested and scared by it.
Yeah. Flip it on its head. I mean, flip it on its head and you know what happens, don't you? Right, Matthew, final one. Come on.
So mine is restaurant tycoon Richard Caring, who has been told today that the rules apply to him despite his wealth, and that he has to abide by planning rules on his multi-million-pound mansion.
You've got some personal beef with this guy. That's a bit...
No. I'm never going to get a table at any of his restaurants, but
No,
I
not
can't afford to
anymore,
eat there.
Right, OK, I am going to go for the mainstream media. I'm going to go for Adam, Union Jackass. Great stuff. Yeah, they absolutely should have covered that. And if the same thing happened, but it was Tories doing it outside Labour conference, it'd be all over the news. Absolute shocker. Right, both of you, all of you, in fact, thank you very, very, very much. I've absolutely loved this. I'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy, winners.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. A little bit of a mixed picture as we end off the day. We've got rain lingering across parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland. Will just sink its way southwards into parts of Northern England as well before generally petering off into the second half of the night. Though some other areas of rain just beginning to push their way into parts of Northern Ireland throughout the early hours as well. A good amount of cloud around will hold up the temperatures for most places around 11-13 degrees Celsius, but parts of Northern Scotland will drop off a touch more down into those single figure values under the clearer skies we have here. This rain will then spread its way in as we head throughout Thursday. Quite a damp start to the day for Northern Ireland, then into Western Scotland, Western England and Wales also seeing a fair amount of rain throughout the day. Past southeastern areas of England, though, staying largely dry with some sunny spells here, so a relatively fine day across the board. Will be quite breezy for most of us, taking the edge off some of those temperatures a touch, but 19 degrees Celsius possible in the south, generally more around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius further north. Into Friday, this mixture of low pressure and high pressure continues. Generally high pressure stuck towards the south, helping to keep things relatively fine and dry, but this trailing frontal system across northern areas will continue to bring outbreaks of rain at times, could turn quite persistent really into areas of Scotland, particularly once this next pulse moves in later on in the day. But further towards the south, again, a good amount of sunshine as we head into the afternoon and into the weekend as well. Those temperatures are beginning to climb well above average for the time of year, reaching the mid-20s. Bye-bye.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
You with GB News. Good evening. The top story tonight, the Prime Minister today confirmed the northern leg of